Dear reader, I was raised at the end of a dead-end road in a township of a village of 1,999 people, or so said the sign by the road that led into the riverside town of Niagara, way up north in the fingertips of Wisconsin, with its towering bluffs and pulp mill and single-building K-12. I had a barn full of pigeons and a Siberian husky, 2 brothers and alfalfa fields, a cedar forest in the Menominee River. There are many good ways to grow up in this world, but this one is mine, and I loved it. Of the landscape, I loved the river most, where it ran steep and tea-colored through a set of rapids named Piers Gorge, just west of the Highway 8 bridge, from which I have thrown many rocks. I live in Ohio now, a busy father and writing professor, but I still sometimes close my eyes and take long hikes alongside Piers Gorge. I can smell the cedars, cross the 2 slippery wooden bridges over tributary creeks, climb uphill, and hear the deep hum of waterfalls. The first words of Raft of Stars came to me by a river, the Peshtigo, which is sort of a little sibling to the Menominee, sharing the same watershed and emptying into Lake Michigan. My wife and I and our first child lived in a house by the river, and I was busy building fires and painting rooms and grading papers from my first teaching job after I graduated from the Iowa Writers' Workshop. I read an essay by Flannery O'Connor about physicality in writing and wrote a few lines about 2 boys pushing bikes down a country road, which later became the novel's opening scene. The view from our river house looked out onto a wide channel filled with a maze of islands where my son and I and his sock monkey liked to canoe and look for turtles. I knew the 2 boys pushing their bikes down the country road would somehow end up on a set of wooded islands like these, but I didn't yet know what in their lives would take them there. I didn't even know their names, who they were, what they were like. Northern Wisconsin is similar in the best and worst ways to Appalachia. It's naturally and thoroughly beautiful. The forests and skies and pickup trucks are big. People are reserved and to the point and mostly very good. They hunt bears. There is poverty and too much alcohol, and often there is too little work. So now many who grow up there have to leave. Teenagers like me looked up at stars and thought about faraway places. I was hauling furniture during my first year out of high school, and in the same strip mall was a recruiting office, so I left by enlisting as an aircraft mechanic in the United States Air Force. Desert Storm happened when I was in elementary school, which was my first experience of war. My second was Afghanistan when I was deployed there. I was 19. It was the driest, most blinding desert I could imagine. My first real task in Afghanistan was to stand at the end of a combat airfield in the pitch black to catch an inbound C-130 cargo jet. I was part of a small group of mechanics lost in a sea of Marines and infantry. Our job was to make sure the inbound pilots didn't want any maintenance. They never did. The flight crews wanted to get in and get out, back to Germany or Italy or wherever else was real food and air conditioning. That first night on the airfield, as I waited alone in the dark of a desert I hadn't even known existed 2 months before, clutching the rifle I shot once in basic training, my helmet all wobbly, I remember thinking very clearly, wait, doesn't anyone know I'm from Wisconsin? There has been some mistake. I spent many hours during my deployment walking the paths alongside the runway at night. There was no river in Afghanistan that I could see, but there were stars, and the stars were something to behold, night after night, circling the airfield like inbound jets in all that desert air. The stars were important to me during that time. They reassured me of the persistence of home. What I love about rivers and stories is the way they always feel like gifts. After the war, I took a job as a whitewater guide on the Menominee during my summers off. I was an English major at Lawrence University, and it was during this time that I learned to love the river, and books too, in a new way. My first attempts to write were forced. Like a new river guide, I used too much muscle and not enough calm. My stories flipped like rafts flipped, all wrapped around rocks. Sometimes I dumped out all the paddlers. In time, I learned I couldn't fight rivers, but I could wait for them. I could learn to co-labor, become a part, accept the gift of a surprise spin, a new current or pressure. The day I received news that my agent was sending the finished manuscript to editors, I remember feeling as if I were seeing off actual family members. I was sitting on the porch of a rented lake house in central Wisconsin, looking across the water, and there they were, the whole cast of characters, paddling off in canoes. A bit of worry in their eyes, but hope also. It was then I realized how much I truly loved them, how they were a gift to me that I couldn't keep. I wished them well. I hope others love them too.